All right, welcome back into the North Star Takes podcast. Bailey Policki and Jacob Liberto with you here. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, and we have an RSS link as well that'll be provided in the bio. So we're starting to expand our audience a little bit here, and today's topic is going to start with the NFL Draft. And the big news that started off the NFL Draft on Thursday morning, Liberta, was the Aaron Rodgers news coming out of Green Bay. Apparently, he doesn't want to be back, and later it turns out that he wants the general manager fired, or he's not coming back. So what are kind of your thoughts on all these rumors swirling about Aaron Rodgers either wanting to be traded or maybe just straight up retiring and becoming the full-time host of Jeopardy?
Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming, if I'm being honest, because I think there's been these rumors swirling basically since the clock ran out on their NFC Championship loss against the Bucs. I think ever since then, there's a lot of uncertainty in the press conference, like right after the fact. Everybody was like, that doesn't really sound like a guy that's going to come back to Green Bay and, take another run at it. So I think it's just been kind of building up, especially behind the scenes until now. Once Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and all these other credible analysts are out there throwing these reports out, it's legit. So this is a crazy time for a guy to just come off an MVP award season, and now we're talking about, is he going to return to that same team in the following season? It's just an unprecedented situation. So obviously from the Vikings standpoint, this would be fantastic.
Yeah.
If he gets out of Green Bay, gets out of this division, like that's going to open the door wide, have the door wide open. But I think I can't see him just calling it quits now and going full-time Jeopardy. I know some people are talking about that being a possibility and just being like, all right, well, then I guess my career's over and I'm going to just go all in and be the host of Jeopardy. But I think he's going to continue his career somewhere else. I think that's where I'm going to stand on this, because I just don't think it's repairable at this point in Green Bay. And I just think that, I guess you never know, but I think they won't fire their GM just because the quarterback says so.
You would think not.
You would think, but I guess there's probably very few players in this league that have sway over something like that if you think it could happen, and Rodgers would be one of those guys. So I guess you never know. Maybe this GM gets fired over his complete mismanagement of his Hall of Fame quarterback, but I think I got to lean more towards they're going to keep the GM. Rodgers going to end up playing somewhere else, maybe Denver, maybe Oakland. I don't know, but that would be. I'm sure John Gruden could make a move for him.
I can see that.
I don't think they'd hesitate. I think they'd probably be able to assemble the trade chips or something like that. But especially in a big market for Rodgers out west like Vegas, I think that'd be a good fit for him. But I think Denver would be even better.
I agree.
Where do you stand on this? What do you think of the whole Rodgers news? This is kind of a bomb on draft day.
Yeah, it made it hard to focus at work. That's for sure. Anytime your biggest rival in your division, anytime they're wanting to be released or traded, or they just basically want to get out of town, that's huge for your team, especially the Vikings. They always seem to struggle against Rodgers. He kind of has their number. Like you mentioned, I think I could see him going to Denver. That makes a lot of sense. They don't really they have Drew Lock, but he's not like a true franchise quarterback that you're willing to stand on the table for.
Drew Lock ain't it.
No. So, and they just traded for Teddy Bridgewater as well, and we've kind of seen over the last couple of years, as much as I like him, he's not a starter.
As do I.
He's a high-quality backup, but he's not a starter.
Exactly.
So Denver makes a lot of sense for Aaron Rodgers, I think, and I would like to see him go there personally. But another thing this could potentially set up, and some Vikings fans have talked about this as well, is the potential opportunity for 2 years from now when he has an out in his contract and he could possibly become a free agent.
Ooh.
This also lines up with Kirk Cousins' contract expiring here. Now, I know we just drafted a quarterback, and we're going to get into that a little bit later.
I like where this is going.
But there is that potential possibility for him to pull a Brett Favre move and come to Minnesota and try to stick it to Green Bay. So what are your thoughts about that?
I could very well see that happening. I'd love to see Rodgers finish what Favre started. And I know Rodgers he could be one to hold a grudge and really want to stick it to the Packers like this. And, who are the teams that you could really see him joining that would really put the Packers in the dirt? And I'd say the Vikings are definitely one of those options. I know people in the past have thrown around like the Chicago Bears, but now, as we're going to get to later, they have their new franchise quarterback. So that's kind of off the table now. So I think I could definitely see the Vikings as a possible landing destination for Rodgers. But I think the path to that would have to be, like you said, it'd have to be in free agency 2 years from now, because the thing is that there's no way the Packers are trading with the Vikings.
No way.
And so then it would have to end there, or possibly yes, contract just have to expire, or potentially if he has like Favre did, just kind of a really clunky sort of disaster year with an AFC team, where then he becomes a viable option to like add to your team. So I think that's a really exciting possibility. I know it's a little bit far off, but it's fun to think big picture.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about Rodgers coming to the Vikings, and I really think with this team we got right now, you never know.
Yeah. I mean, this team, the way that we've kind of drafted and the way free agency played out, we're kind of set up to be pretty good here within these next couple of years. 100%. So if this team still looks like it can be competitive when he decides he wants to hit free agency, I don't see why he wouldn't, take advantage of that and try and finish what, like you said, what Favre started, and kind of leave that part of his legacy as well. So
exactly.
With that, we'll get into the top of the draft here. It was a pretty standard, I'd say, based on what we've seen in mock drafts, top 5.
Somewhat shocking,
there was a little bit of a twist at 3. So we had Trevor Lawrence obviously going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Zach Wilson going to the Jets. Mm-hmm. But then at 3, the hot rumor was that San Francisco was going to be drafting Mac Jones, which none of us really necessarily bought for sure.
No.
But
it's hard to say.
It turns out to be Trey Lance from NDSU, which was a huge bummer for me. I'm a big Trey Lance guy. I was hoping he'd fall, but I'm also happy for him because
3rd overall, it's huge.
Yeah, 3rd overall, that's awesome for an NDSU quarterback. Wentz went 2nd overall. Mm-hmm. San Francisco's got a really good team, and I think that they could be even better once he's ready to start and compete, and he could possibly be their franchise quarterback for years to come. So, and then at 4, we had Kyle Pitts to the Falcons, which everyone kind of assumed. Mm-hmm. And then 5 was Jamar Chase to the Bengals. So what are your thoughts on the top 5 there?
The top 5? Yeah, kind of going back to the Trey Lance thing, I really do like the fit there because I think his potential is through the roof, especially with a world-class play caller like Kyle Shanahan is. I think that's huge. It's a great organization. They were just in the Super Bowl, and they're a 4th quarter away from winning against the best team in the league right now. So mm-hmm. I think that's really cool. I think there's a lot of possibility there. So I think it's a good fit. And I think the 49ers, in the end, logic played out, and they took Lance, who's got the higher ceiling, at the 3rd overall pick than Mac Jones, and just kind of settling, in my opinion. So I'm curious to know, like, really how close it was coming down to the last week or so before the draft, because I've seen some reports where they're like, oh, yeah, we knew who we were taking, like, a week before we were making this pick. But then there's some reports that are saying, like, the coaches and scouts had no idea who the Niners, who they were actually going to take until it was literally announced on TV and Roger Goodell was at the podium. So I don't really know what to believe there. So mm-hmm. I think it's good for the Niners and their fans that they ended up with Trey Lance, because
I agree.
I think they're truly a Super Bowl caliber team and with a great quarterback. So
absolutely,
that's pretty cool. Kyle Pitts, I think that was popular in the mock, especially lately going to the Falcons. So I don't think there's much to say there. He's a dynamic playmaker. Everybody was saying that he could be like or have the highest Hall of Fame potential in the class just coming into it right now. So that's big, and I think it's kind of a fun thinking about their offense with Julio Jones, assuming he doesn't get traded. Mm-hmm. And then you got Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts. I think there's a lot of dynamic playmakers there.
So for sure.
That could be fun. And Jamar Chase reuniting with Joe Burrow and Cincy, that's a fun pick. I know some people might think they should have went Sewell there and just kind of went, meat and potatoes, franchise left tackle, which I wouldn't blame them for that either. But I think Jamar Chase he can be the number 1 receiver in a talented wide receiver room with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, so they can go 3 deep. So I'm kind of intrigued what the Bengals will do going forward.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before too, but Jamar Chase, selfishly for fantasy football reasons, I think him and Joe Burrow back together is just going to be awesome.
Yes.
I think they're going to be 2 highly coveted players in fantasy football this year. But yeah, like you said, the Kyle Pitts thing wasn't much of a surprise. And then you mentioned Penei Sewell, who ended up dropping to 7 to the Detroit Lions, which that's a great pick for them because really they kind of need everything. There's not like one specific position that they're going after. They're in a full-on rebuild. They're probably going to be pretty dang bad this year, I would think. Mm-hmm. So taking the top left tackle who has potential Hall of Fame potential, I think that's a great pick for them. So, and then Justin Fields started to drop down the board a little bit. I know we were getting excited watching the draft as he was slipping past the top 10. And then all of a sudden, here comes Chicago trading up to 11, and then we just knew at that point.
I know. Yeah, we were getting our hopes up. I was so excited Fields is falling. I was like, could he actually be a Viking? Everybody was saying he might fall. I guess I didn't really think so. I kind of figured he'd stay in the top 10, being I mean, at least in my opinion, I think in yours as well, that we kind of thought Fields was the second best quarterback in the class right now.
Yeah, honestly.
So it was kind of shocking to see him fall out of the top 10 and end up at 11 with the Bears. That really bummed me out. Like you said, that moment where they traded up and landed their guy. That hurt, because it wasn't just that we missed out on Fields, it's that a division rival ended up with him. So that was kind of tough. And I mean, the price certainly didn't come cheap. The Bears had to move up all the way from 20, so they had to sacrifice their first round pick for next year too. But if you think he's your guy, got to do whatever it takes to go get him. So, I think that was a good pick by the Bears. It's unfortunate for us, but as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I think it played out fine. Outside of that, it'll leave a little bit to be desired in the back of your mind, maybe, especially going forward. But I think outside of that, I think the first round played out quite nice for us. So.
I would agree. Yeah. I know we were upset at the time because the Bears were willing to do what we weren't willing to do.
Yep.
But at the same time, we have Kirk Cousins. He's under contract, and we're paying him a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Bears, they don't really have anybody. They signed Andy Dalton. He's not very good anymore. They still have Nick Foles. He's horrible now. So they don't have like a true starting quarterback. So it makes sense for them to, sacrifice future picks, trade up, 8 or 9 spots, get to 11. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I commend them for that. And honestly, hopefully it works. I don't want him to be amazing because we don't need another Aaron Rodgers type quarterback in this division.
One dynasty ends, another one begins.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. The Bears historically they don't draft well at quarterback and they don't develop quarterbacks at all. So
case in point, Mitchell Trubisky.
Exactly. Trubisky's the latest example. He's horrible. And now he's Buffalo's backup. So
yeah. Which, adding on to that real quick, that makes me wonder that, I mean, ownership must have had a lot of faith in Ryan Pace. He was the same guy who took Mitchell Trubisky, especially in a trade up in one spot he gave up multiple thirds and a fourth just to get Trubisky, and he was an absolute flop. So, I'm kind of surprised that they gave him the green light to take another quarterback, trade up for another quarterback, sacrificing another first round pick when his future probably isn't even guaranteed past this season. So, that seemed kind of risky, but I guess Fields is generational talent too. So, I mean, that had to be intriguing to everybody in the building. So,
yeah. And there was rumors going around on Twitter that, according to Darren Doogie Wolfson, actually, the Vikings were interested in Justin Fields, and they were actually trying to get up to the 7th overall pick with Detroit. Now, that's trading with a division rival, so that would obviously make it a lot tougher. And apparently Detroit was asking for our 14th overall pick this year, plus our first-round pick next year. So it seems like a steep price, especially for a team that's trying to compete right now, and then to draft a quarterback that might not necessarily play right away.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I know it's hard parting the first round picks because those are blue chip guys more often than not. But I say from both sides. Like on the one hand, you can get a pretty dynamic quarterback trading up, sacrificing the first round pick to get up there to 7. But it is kind of dangerous a little bit trading with a team within your division and giving up 2 first rounders for that. So I can see why Rick would play it safe, especially when there's other options on the board, when we have other positions to fill. I kind of get why we kind of just stood pat. It all depends on price, and I think that might have been just a little bit too steep. But only time will tell. Maybe we'll look back on this 5 years from now and be like, that was just a crucial mistake, just a franchise-altering downfall for us. So I for now, I can totally live with what Rick did. So I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, especially as you said earlier, how the draft played out. I think it played out very well for them, considering what they did. So,
exactly.
Yeah, both of us love Justin Fields, and we would have loved to have him on the Vikings, but it would have just been nice if he would have fell to 14 rather than having to trade up to go get him. So, I'm not too upset that we weren't able to trade up. Plus, I mean, you have to have teams that are willing to trade back too, and that's not always necessarily the case either. And I think that gets forgotten. So, as we keep going down the draft here, the Viking gets to the Vikings pick at 14, and all of a sudden we have a trade back announced.
Trader Rick.
Yep, back at it again.
Yeah.
Not really to anyone's surprise, I don't think. You and I had kind of talked about this on our previous show, how if the guys we truly wanted weren't there at 14, we would actually prefer a trade back, pick up a couple extra picks, and then still go get your left tackle. And that's what they ended up doing. They were able to get 2 third-round picks from the New York Jets, which I think was a great deal. It would have been nice to get a second, but to also get 2 third-round picks from a team that was horrible this last season was nice as well. So they end up trading back to 23. Mac Jones is still on the board. He ends up falling to the Pats at 15, which I think everyone kind of assumed at that point was going to happen.
Yeah.
Patriots were looking for a quarterback. Yeah. So I think that'll end up being a good fit. He's not going to have to start right away. They have Cam Newton. And, they got Bill Belichick, who worked with a pocket passer, and Tom Brady. So I think that's going to end up being a good fit. How about you?
Yeah, I think I agree. I like the transition from Nick Saban to Bill Belichick. I feel like it's one and the same. Obviously, Nick Saban was part of the Bill Belichick tree way back in the 90s, once upon a time. So I think that's kind of fun. But when you look at it from a standpoint, like how different Mac Jones and Cam Newton are, that's very interesting here. But at the same time, Cam's for now, but he's not a long-term option either. So they're just building for the future. And I guess I don't know how long Bill Belichick's future will be, honestly, in the league. I mean, he's getting up there in age. He's like, I think, 70 plus now. So I'm curious how long he'll be around, I guess, and see Mac Jones come to fruition, see him have his development in this league. So I don't know. I think, for the long-term play for the Patriots, I think this is a solid pick, assuming they can keep the organization going in the right direction and doesn't just get off path here, because every young quarterback, they're going to succeed. They're going to need just the steadiness there. So I think it'll work. I think if I could pick probably a handful of teams in the league where Mac Jones would work, one of them probably would be the Patriots. I don't know. Yeah, I
would agree with you on that. So going back to the Minnesota Vikings, they traded back to 23. This is kind of our last highlight pick here of the first round. So the Jets trade up from 23. They went and got Elijah Vera-Tucker, who was the guy that was most often mocked to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Left guard. He could play left tackle, but I think the Jets drafted him as a guard.
Yeah, because they got Mecca Becton.
Exactly. Yeah. So what do you think about the Jets trading up for a left guard? And then we're sitting there at 23, and Christian Darrisaw is still on the board. And he was the third left tackle in this class. He was roughly in the same area as Elijah Vera-Tucker on a lot of mock drafts. So what do you feel about us trading back 9 spots, still getting our bona fide left tackle? Hopefully it'll be our left tackle for the next 10 plus years, getting 2 third-round picks in addition to that, while the Jets traded up for Elijah Vera-Tucker.
Yeah, I know. Like right now, that looks very questionable for the Jets. I feel like you don't take a guard that high, but I guess if you feel strongly about him, you believe all the hype around him, that everybody's saying he's a future All-Pro guard, then great. But I mean, we're not going to know that for another few years here. So at this point in time, it looks highly questionable trading up for a yard and giving the Vikings 2/3, and then still Darrisaw falls all the way down the board at 23. That's incredible value there, especially when that would have been a very suitable pick at 14 for us anyway. So. That's huge for the Vikings. That was a great start to the draft and really got us rolling into day 2. So I think all Vikings fans, I would say most, except for the Fields fans out there that were really passionate about him, I'd say that you had to walk away from that night 1 pretty satisfied.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it was classic Rick Spielman. I think he had it in his mind that he wanted to trade back. I don't think he was expecting Christian Darrisaw to even be there. I think they were probably preparing to pick an edge rusher, which luckily those fell off the board before the Vikings pick. Otherwise, who knows what we would have done if we would have passed on Darrisaw for an edge rusher. I think a lot of fans would have been upset about that.
Yes.
Being able to trade back to 23, still getting your guy, your left tackle of the future, who's going to protect Kirk, and maybe the potential next quarterback of the future, which we'll get into here. I think it's pretty exciting. It was a A+ first round, I would say, honestly.
Yeah, I would say an A+, just because the draft picks you picked up along with still getting the guy you could have gotten at your original pick. So that would have been a good pick at your original pick, I should say. So can't complain. So if you're listening on the podcast, we're going to take a quick break. Otherwise, if you're watching on YouTube, we'll have another video out here breaking down all the Vikings draft picks from this year's draft. So with that wraps up this section of the North Star Takes podcast, and we'll see you next time.